Hey folks, good afternoon to you on this Friday, April 17th, 2026. I have all of your news for your rush hour ride home, and we have Donald Trump saying that he's okay with public hearings regarding the Epstein files, making a false claim that the victims did not want to testify publicly. So I'll share what he has to say. We've also got Candace Owens calling out MAGA and Trump for their disapproval of Tucker Carlson, saying, hey, why couldn't you put some of that energy towards the greatest conspiracy of our lifetime, that being the Epstein files? Also, we've got J.D. Vance lying through his teeth when he was confronted by a university student in Georgia regarding why he isn't doing more to get the Epstein files out. Then we've also got more. We're going to tie it all together as Candace Owens and the Secret Service are questioning Erika Kirk's narrative as to why she canceled that event. All right, it's all tied together. This and more starts right now on The Rush. Okay, so before I get into what Trump had to say, wanted to just give you guys I wanted a big moment of gratitude for what you did to my video yesterday. You made our afternoon video go super viral, at least for us with the political world. 151 plus thousand views, at one point getting 15,000 views an hour at 5 a.m. Who's watching us at that hour? I don't know. But either way, this is life-changing stuff for me, so I appreciate you guys. We've jumped from a pop culture niche to covering really all different topics, but also progressive politics. And because of that, I appreciate the 1,800 or so new subscribers. So how about this? Again, when you tie together the greatest conspiracy of our time, that being the Epstein files, and why there's only been 2% of the data actually released. They claim they've released millions of files. They released the letters. They haven't released any of the actual evidence, the trove that exists out there. Well, how does that relate to the war in Iran? Trump is now claiming, and Iranian officials are claiming, that the Strait of Hormuz is being opened temporarily. So they're taking this big victory lap, basically saying, we put out the fire we created. But there's a lot of investigation into Trump's right-hand man, Jared Kushner. House Judiciary Committee Democrats launched probe into Jared Kushner. The inquiry says you're now reportedly participating as special envoy for peace in negotiations on behalf of the U.S. to address the roiling conflicts in the Middle East. At the same time, you are soliciting billions of dollars from Gulf monarchies for your private business ventures. Yeah, you can't be doing that. Now, Trump, his entire family, he always calls it like the Biden crime family, but you realize like the Trump family has made billions based on his position as president, right? I mean, the first presidency they did, where all the foreign dignitaries would stay at Trump hotels, it's all a money laundering scam. In this case, you had, the crypto scam that he launched the day before his inauguration, Qatar, the jet, kidnapping the Venezuelan president, stealing oil. It's all, he's a pirate. We've elected a pirate. But will there be any accountability for the stooges around him? Yet to be seen. So here's Candace Owens calling out Trump and MAGA because Tucker Carlson is doing the right thing, claiming we're in an unjust war. Where's all that energy for releasing the Epstein files?
It is unacceptable, frankly, that our government gives more flack to Tucker Carlson. Our government representatives give more flack to Tucker Carlson than they did to Jeffrey Epstein. That they choose to cover up the crimes of Jeffrey Epstein while pretending that speech in America is what's actually radical, not people who are actually harming children and abusing children sexually. We don't even have a government, in my view. Like, we can't even protect the nation's most innocent. How do we even have a government? I guess that's a larger philosophical question.
Now, the reason why I'm always so interested in covering Candace Owens is because, I would say that her biggest, point of advocacy is for children. She's a mom. Everyone wants children to be taken care of. That's why Tim Walz's plan in Minnesota was so popular, to use government money, people's tax dollars to help kids have a food program so they don't go to school hungry. I mean, I think it's the one thing we can all agree on is that it's a ridiculous world that we have issues of gun safety around schools, around healthcare for kids, and so many of those issues, because it's like kids are innocent, right? They're innocent of all this political mess they've been thrown into. And likewise, because Candace is such an advocate for children, whether you agree with her or not, that's her big claim within the looking into the Macron family is that it was grooming and, all these other claims that existed. Obviously the French president's wife was also his teacher when he was a teen. It's a whole mess. We don't need to get into it. But if you want to go on the merit that she's for fighting for the voiceless children, absolutely, the Epstein files. And Candace has kind of been busy with the Charlie Kirk stuff. And I'm like, we've all been waiting, saying like, we need someone like you, who's probably the biggest voice now in the conservative movement, whatever the hell you want to call it. She's ex-MAGA. I don't know what she is right now, right? But if you want to take someone like her with the biggest platform, like talk about the Epstein files and not just those people in government. It's Donald Trump. It is Donald Trump. The fish rots from the head. It is Trump who has ordered Pam Bondi not to release the files and do all of this like kabuki, whatever the hell it is, where they pass out binders and pretend like they're releasing stuff. He's the one in charge, and so many are unwilling to completely cross him. But now that he's called out Alex Jones, Tucker Carlson, Candace, Megyn Kelly, now Marjorie Taylor Greene, now that he's called them all out, it's like, all right, no more playing nice. Let's call it what it is. Trump is obstructing the transparency he claimed to be, willing to, he claimed to be the one person who could bring about all of this transparency. So right here, when Trump says, oh yeah, I would be okay with a public hearing, he has no problem just sort of like front-facing in front of the camera, claiming he'd be okay with all these things. Then he does literally everything in his power. Shuts down the government, right? Magic Mike Johnson shut down the government for 8 weeks. The effort that they've gone into to not release the Epstein files, and again, they'll say we released 3 million files. Well, then how come they had about 100 federal agents working overtime for weeks to find out all of the times Trump was mentioned and have those redacted? Like, we don't know what we don't know, but what we do know is there's a hell of a lot of files that haven't been released.
Pakistan. So I might go. They want me.
The First Lady last week called on Congress to further look into and uncover the truth on the Epstein files, the Epstein saga. Do you believe that there should be a public hearing for more of these Epstein survivors?
So the question was, do you believe there should be a public hearing for Epstein survivors? Because Melania called on this to happen. He's like, oh, my wife's getting me into trouble.
With it, I think we've had a lot of public hearings. I'm okay with it, but
He says, I'm okay with it. We've had a lot of public hearings. Yeah. Oh, we've had it. We've done hours of this uncovering the greatest conspiracy of our country's history.
I understand that the women didn't want to go under oath. That's what I heard, that the women, the victims or whatever, they refused to go under oath, which was a little surprising. So Melania felt strongly about it because she was accused of that I met her through Epstein, but it turned out to be totally false. It was a false oath.
So there it is. The victims or whatever. Right? How dismissive. The victims or whatever don't want to go public, which we know that's not true. Now, maybe there was a victim who didn't want to testify, but they had already given their testimony to the FBI, right? They had already done all of this and their phone calls weren't returned. I mean, there'll be comments from people that say, well, why didn't Joe Biden do anything about it? Can people get their head out of their bipartisan ass for a second here? Yes, the Biden administration, Obama, it goes back a long ways. Do I claim that those administrations were actively stopping the Epstein files from being released? No, I don't think so. I think what happened was, call this COPE or whatever, I think there was a separation of the Department of Justice from the executive branch. And I think it was the Department of Justice that probably had people on the inside that were preventing these stories from coming out because of, I don't know, people high up that had, a strong influence. That's my thought. And if it never got out of the Department of Justice, the presidents, they have bigger things to worry about. Now, in this case, Donald Trump is all over those files. He's over the files. His name is mentioned more than Jesus Christ's name was mentioned in the Bible, right? But so you would think if his name was clear, he would be doing everything in his power, spending every tax dollar he could to get every page of these files released. I know I would. If I was made, accused of crazy stuff and I was innocent, I would shout from the rooftop and I'd have post boards and the whole world would know. I'm not one of these guys. Here they are. Here's all the evidence. He didn't do that. He's in there. And just this video I made yesterday afternoon, this video that took off right here, this was the one that took off right here because I was talking about whistleblower. I shouldn't say he's not exactly a whistleblower, but he was Jeffrey Epstein's attorney who said that I believe Jane Doe 4 received a settlement in 2025. That's what they said. So these are their words, right? We're not crazy conspiracy theorists. We know there's a big issue happening and we know we're not getting the truth. So Candace Owens, sort of like a parallel story, has responded to the U.S. Secret Service. The U.S. Secret Service says there's no credible threat to Erika Kirk. She, of course, we've all canceled an appearance, right? We've all said we were sick. Now that I have a child, I can blame everything on him. Oh, the kid, he pooped all over the car seat. We can't come now. Whatever, just throw him under the bus. Secret Service determines no threats to the UGA rally after Erika Kirk's cancellation. Now, why is this a big deal? Well, she claimed, I can't show up because, there's death threats. And I'm sure she gets death threats every day. Now, in fairness, the Secret Service said there were no threats to the actual location. And the claims being made, I guess, is that while the site was secure and there were no threats to the protectee, Erika Kirk may have received hostile or threatening messages on social media that were not part of any identified or actionable threat. And of course, she has to get to the facility and stay at a hotel, and who the hell knows? But again, it just leads to the question as to why the government is not being transparent. And how could they have JD Vance show up to this event and not Erika Kirk? And again, Candace says the public should continue to be outraged. Erika Kirk flew to Athens, Georgia from Palm Beach on Tuesday after a weekend bridal shower at Mar-a-Lago. She flew on board a massive apartment-sized jet owned by Vegas billionaires. She landed into a terminal which had been secured since Monday by our nation's Secret Service. There was both military and police presence waiting at the terminal to escort the VP, who was due to land about an hour and 30 minutes after her. After learning of the crowd size, Erika decided she no longer wanted to do the event. Rather than simply canceling, she instructed her PR team to make up a demented lie about imminent threats against her travel safety. She was already in Georgia, sitting upon a federally cleared pathway. Hey, I mean, when you make that kind of claim that JD Vance was already supposed to be there, and again, they had to have Andrew Colvett sub in for Erika. Now, why is this a big deal? Well, it's just like people are fed up with what's going on with this war that we're in. Charlie Kirk, one of the bigger voices in the conservative movement, was beginning to be against not just going into war, but against the genocide in Gaza, perpetrated by the Israeli government. And then what does he get out of it? Well, he gets shot in the neck and dies, right? He's assassinated. Candace Owens has made it her mission to sort of like avenge his death and find out who did it. And then now we have Erika Kirk canceling another threat because of death threat, or canceling another event because of death threats. Again, whatever. You know what I mean? Maybe she shouldn't be doing events. Be a mother. I don't know. But the point is that the reason why this event was so poorly attended in Georgia was because nobody cares about this stuff anymore. The fun vibes that people had going to Turning Point USA, the fun vibes people had in MAGA, they're gone. That dopamine rush is over because they now have seen that the president pissed on their leg and told them it's raining. The president lies literally about everything, from crowd sizes to wanting the Epstein files released to all these, gas prices are coming down, to all these things. So here we have a student who was able to sort of sneak his way through the question line at the Turning Point USA event and ask about the Epstein files cover-up. I'm going to play what he had to say, and then I'm going to share how he said he was treated by them pre-screening the questions. So it's one thing to be for freedom of speech. It's another to be at an event where they claim to want to take questions from the audience, and whether or not your question's approved, depends on whether or not you can even get in line. It's a whole mess. Here's what he had to say.
President Trump multiple times called the files a hoax. The acting attorney general said Epstein shouldn't be a part of anything at the DOJ. If there are compromised government officials in those files, how can the public trust that this administration will hold anyone accountable when its own Justice Department is actively blocking the investigation? Given that, can you clearly articulate your stance on whether federal entities should have a formal investigation?
Now, before JD Vance responds, what's so funny? I'm not going to play his clip here, but he was in line to ask a question, and they were asking, like, what are you gonna like? what kind of question are you going to ask? And he said foreign policy. And even after that, they bumped someone else up in the line. He goes through it and tells the funny story how they were kind of like trying to kick him out of the line. And JD Vance said, all right, one more person. And he ended up being the next person so that they ended up having to let him ask the question. And it just goes to show, like, you can understand that when inviting people to ask questions to the vice president, you can understand you don't want people to just go up there and, be super offensive. But at the same time, these are the questions that people have. Talk all day you want about tariffs and things like that. JD Vance claimed, along with so many others, that they wanted all the Epstein files to come out. We now know only 2% of the data has come out. And yet, where the hell is the accountability?
Thank you.
Yeah. So...
And by the way, there's no one at this event. It was free, but you can hear he's getting a big applause. Like, thank you for asking this question. If they knew this was the question he was going to ask, there is no way he would have gotten it in.
So first of all, you said the Associate Attorney General or something. I haven't seen that quote, but here's my view on the Epstein matter.
And by the way, that's right. Todd Blanche, after Pam Bondi was fired, Todd Blanche has come in, Trump's former personal lawyer, and he's the one who's going to be the arbiter of truth right now. Where is the accountability?
Number one, the guy was clearly a scumbag. Okay. Number two, he clearly had extraordinary connections, both with intelligence services, both inside the United States and outside the United States, and also with a lot
Hold on. JD Vance is now admitting that Epstein worked with intelligence in and outside of the United States. We already know this. Dropsite News confirmed it. Emails came out that the former prime minister of Israel, not Netanyahu, the former prime minister, like literal email proof, there's no question about it, worked with Epstein. So here we have Epstein with all of these cameras capturing all of this evidence and blackmail. And now we have a president who was good friends with Epstein, whether he wants to say it or not, wrote in his journal for his birthday and all that. Now we have a president sending us into a war, killing American lives for nothing, raising all of our gas prices. And the vice president is making that link, and we're not doing anything about it? We're not questioning if Trump's compromised?
Very wealthy and powerful people, okay? Number three, I have been a firm advocate and will continue to be a firm advocate of where we have something. And I'm probably more obsessed with this than most officials, okay?
And after your term, you're going to have a lot of free time because you're never going to work in politics again.
More obsessed with this than most people, even in this room, is when you see somebody who says something in an email that suggests, there's one email I read, and it's been a little while ago, but it was talking about, one person sent an email to Jeffrey Epstein saying, oh, there was some really nice, pizzas and grape sodas or something like that. And I remember it sounded like the Pizzagate conspiracy theory, but here it was in an email from a guy. And my reaction to that was, we should absolutely investigate that person. Okay. And, you remind me, I'm going to follow up on that to see whether we've investigated that person, because we should. We absolutely should. When you see evidence of sexual assault, sexual misconduct, regardless of whether you're powerful or not, in fact, you should probably investigate it more if you're a powerful person, right?
Just what are they even gaslighting us about, right? Okay, yeah, the Pizzagate, sure. Investigate it, yeah. Pizza, grape soda, yeah, no, absolutely. Look into that, absolutely. But what about your boss? What about Trump? This idea that he's been vindicated, what are we... We haven't seen the evidence yet.
I don't want powerful people, being involved in this disgusting behavior. But I have to defend the president on this, because when he said that it was a hoax, what he was talking about was this democratic idea that he's connected to Epstein. If you look at those emails, it's like, they were in the same, everybody in Palm Beach knew everybody, okay? Like the president has said he knew Jeffrey Epstein and he was a
He knew Jeffrey Epstein and he was a scumbag, and we've only received 2% of the evidence, and Trump spent hundreds of federal employees' times pulling them off of other cases in order to find his own name mentioned in it. Sounds like a real hoax to me. So yeah, I mean, that's just what it is. Now, it appears, according to Joe Kent, that a historic deal is within reach that will hold a ceasefire if President Trump is willing to enforce the restrictions he's placed on Israel. Here's what Trump tweeted. The USA will get all nuclear dust created by our great B-2 bomb bombers. No money will exchange hands in any way, shape, or form. This deal is in no way subject to Lebanon either, but the USA will separately work with Lebanon and deal with the Hezbollah situation in an appropriate manner. Israel will not be bombing Lebanon any longer. They are prohibited from doing so by the United States of America. Enough is enough. Thank you, President Donald J. Trump. We're about to find out if he's blackmailed or not, because that's the claim that he's making. Now, of course, last week, the ceasefire deal that they had, that was brokered by Pakistan, was agreed upon that it would include Lebanon. That's what Pakistan thought. And then Israel immediately bombs the hell out of Lebanon. I mean, literally. 1,000 homes a day. They are bombing the hell out of Lebanon. 1 million people displaced. They're stealing their territory. It's insane. And they're making the same claims they made in Gaza and the same claims they're making to Iran, that it's like peace through strength. We need to go after these terrorist groups. But of course, what's happening? Bombing schools, bombing universities, bombing hospitals. Bombing synagogues, bombing Catholic churches. It's insane. And now we know it's very clear. The ceasefire will include Israel not bombing Lebanon. And, Iran's like, all right, hold my beer. All right, sure, yeah. All right, let the boats through. But the second they drop a bomb, it's up. Right? And of course, Trump announces this on Friday afternoon. I don't even know right now, but of the recording of my video, my guess is that stock prices are through the moon. This is how they play the system. Get to the weekend by juicing the stock market and then weird stuff. Yeah, the stock market's going through the roof because of this news. I'm sure there was insider trading that was attached to it. It's an absolute mess. But will Israel play along? And again, this is the game plan. Trump is taking credit for a fire being put out, even though he started the fire. Here's Fox News. They're claiming this is a brilliant strategic victory for Tehran. Imagine this. Fox News is on the side of reality that Tehran is playing the hell out of the president of the United States. Donald Trump's greatest historic cheerleader, now it's like Newsmax or OAN or whatever else, but Fox News historically has been Donald Trump's greatest cheerleader, bloviating him, bending the knee, blowing the hell out of his orange, you know what, and now they're saying, oh, Trump's getting played.
Hi, Martha. Iran was reportedly asking for a ceasefire between Israel and Lebanon as part of its requirements for some type of peace deal with the United States. Now that the president announced that 10-day ceasefire between Israel and Lebanon yesterday, moments ago, the foreign minister of Iran announced that the Strait of Hormuz, behind me in the distance in the Persian Gulf, is declared completely open for the remaining period of the ceasefire. So, things apparently on the upswing here in the Gulf. We can report here in the UAE, there's been about a week of calm now. No incoming missiles or drones from Iran after weeks and weeks of almost endless attacks coming from Iran.
It's been an absolute mess to the countries and tourism in the Middle East, obviously, and the global fuel price. There was stored gasoline, stored oil that was, stored on the open seas, different oil tankers. Those supplies were coming low. So if this holds, this will bring gas prices down. Like, absolutely. Eventually, this will bring gas prices down. And my question is MAGA going to give Trump the victory there for putting out the fire that he started? I don't think he should. So here he is saying, hey, believe it or not, we have great relations with Iran. What? The country you just threatened to wipe off the face of the earth?
No, Lebanon, right? So they'll be working with Hezbollah.
If they fire Jay Powell, interested in acquiring Iranian oil.
What?
Are you still interested in acquiring Iranian oil?
Well, we'll see. We have a very good relationship with Iran right now, as hard as it is to believe. And I think it's a combination of about 4 weeks of bombing and a very powerful blockade.
There it is. Oh, we have a great relationship. That's like beating the hell out of your partner and claiming you have a great relationship. What are you talking about? So the question was, are we going to be buying oil from Iran? Now, previously we had sanctions on them. Now they're making more money than ever because their oil prices, oil prices globally have skyrocketed, and they've got control of the strait that allows oil to come. It's like anyone who knows economics on any basic level knows this was such a bad deal for the United States, literally doing nothing. If Trump sat in a coma at Walter Reed, for his entire presidency, we'd be far better off. Some people said, oh, we're getting some money, tax returns. I think the average tax return was supposed to be $750. It's coming in more closer to $300. Tariffs cost the families $1,800. Gas prices are wiping out any savings you might have thought you had, plus all of the inflation that's going to come with those gas prices regarding the cost of goods going up. Like, what are we even talking about? So here's Senator Chris Van Hollen exposing Trump's terrible ceasefire deal. Again, he's putting out the fire. Don't forget, he started it.
This is another example where Donald Trump lit the fire and now wants credit for putting it out, because under the Obama administration, we had an agreement with Iran that prevented Iran from getting a nuclear weapon.
Yeah, so there it is. So Trump's essentially a bull in a china shop, and then he's trying to sell you Trump glue. He's like, I got super glue. It's like, you broke everything. Yeah, but my glue can fix it. You know what I mean? All right, that's it for me. I'll probably have content over the weekend, so stick around. Make sure you're subscribed. Hello to all of the new audience. Either way, we're normally here every morning and every afternoon for your morning rush and your afternoon commute back home. And also bonus episodes at lunchtime if you're ever working and you want to pop a video on. We're here for you, baby. We'll see you then. As always, I'm Dave, and this is The Rush.